matched, and one of them was a trailer tire, one steer tire competition. First day I walked in, I was Lynn's truck, I told him, no, you don't run trailer tires and steer tires. I'm going to show you right now. I had to order new tires for it the first day. And if I don't, there's some dirt in it, I will do a brand new set of dirt tires over there. And I wouldn't sell them, right? You know what I mean?
That's open road for your employees.
Gotta stay out of their stuff, man.
He didn't know either. He was like, I don't know.
That's the way they can either for it or against it.
So they don't hear me done with it,
That's all I got to say about that.
that's all I have. But, no, I had them set, I had the sheriff call this morning, set up an account with them.
Westward.
Yeah, Western, so we can use them. Use them to our tax ID numbers and stuff, so. You should probably use them if you need to on some of your stuff.
Ken's gonna be over that, I think, what called. Ken Walker, or not Ken Walker, last name Walker.
I don't know. I talked to the one that you sent me the number on.
Kenny.
I use the Kubota dealership for service out of Stephenville. They're pretty good.
Big deal.
Oh, this is John Deere. Yeah, I got the seal popped out on the rear axle. On the tractor.
You see what they did out there? Montana,
Oh, further
hot dance.
hot tank.
Wow.
This is for the month of June too.
That's good.
Yeah, that July come in out there, that one, that convention deal out there that one weekend.
Yeah.
I know, because I was out there trying to check roads. There was like 15 women walking down the road down there, and I was on the main tank, I run out there on Friday. But myself, and we're gonna hit some bad spots. And I felt bad because I was dragging up dust. And I didn't realize it was right around the corner until I covered it.
Whoopsie.
We're in on Wednesday.
It was on the radio, so that was
Yeah, we just ran out of space for the weekend, but we already got it in for Wednesday.
that's fine. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. think we've met for the wind farm by chance?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
I figured it would be so full.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Put it on that side.
You get that four-way stop done?
Been working hard.
Good, glad to hear it. I didn't realize there'd been 4 more accidents since I last wrote about it.
All those fatalities. I worked a lot of those accidents myself.
Yeah.
I've been pushing for a long time to do that.
You still gonna try for more, or is that, we'll see how this goes?
We're still on the books for the overpass.
Okay.
But this will slow everything
Yeah.
down and help the process a whole bunch. It saves more lives. What we're doing.
Yeah. It's just bad, you gotta stop the right of way for the people not paying attention.
Well, that's one thing, you look at something, and you gotta figure out what the problem is.
Yeah.
Figure out how to solve it.
Yeah, well, I get it, it's just disappointing that that's what it's gotta be. But,
It's the world we live in today.
oh, preaching to the choir.
The world we live in today. You just took it on me, did you?
It doesn't have the I'm here for just blank. I've got one of the attachments. Is that yours? No, it's fine. There's plenty of them. Thank you. You don't need
I'll go over it.
You do? I have one that I have attached.
Going great, man. Totally almost free.
It's been a while.
85%.
I have one with attachments if you want it, but let me go borrow this. Let me
Mr.
borrow
Baxter.
it.
Mr.
Better
Baxter,
have all the other stuff.
I have heard from this morning.
Okay.
I'm expecting him as well.
Okay.
You'll be here.
Last time he gave me flew a self-healing.
Yes, that's right. Kind of a neat trick he does.
He's got a, I don't know if it's high school classmate or college mate, somebody that lives around here, close to me. He goes up here.
Well, I'm not sure if you saw the note from him. I had some talk about why the minimum going up to 500 is kind of challenging for us in terms of what we have to overcome in financing, some risks, but we absolutely accept the minimum going up 20% to 46%. That is not a problem.
That might have been him walking.
I know, I can tell.
Oh, is that him? All right, well, there
I
he
was
is.
looking at it.
What's that? It's an agenda. Yeah, I got you. I had y'all's numbers. I think so. I need to go see what mine is. Should be a non-department, but it's not spelled out. Y'all go ahead and start. We can go pull that figure.
We're gonna work on our road for the new budget. Let's start with my road.
Huh?
Let's start with my road.
Well, your road, we got to hear that first.
I don't know how to act. I'm not gonna be so guts.
The dust is there, but the potholes aren't, it's a lot smoother than it was.
Yeah, but we can go faster.
Well, I had somebody call me the other day, said, could I put a skate bump in over here? Can't do that.
You can start tomorrow, because I'm gonna be down there this week.
What, baby?
Frankie's daughter was driving around in that bus.
You join us today? You join us today? Am I going, we're going, yeah. In here? I'm just joking.
I've been on the job since 6:30.
Okay.
The Young County Court, Commissioners Court, will come to order, sitting in a regular meeting. This is Monday, August 9th, 2021. It's 9:35 a.m. We'll make note that this meeting was posted in the manner for the time required, that all members of the court are present. If it's convenient for everyone, please stand. Rest of you will to lead us in our application and our pledges.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you today. We come to you and ask for wisdom and guidance as our in these proceedings today, dear Lord. Be with this community as a whole, help it to fight through these sicknesses going around, dear Lord. And we just ask you each and every day to walk with us. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one nation, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
In the first instance, we are live on YouTube, and if anyone that may be viewing the meeting virtually, if they would like to speak on any item we have on the agenda, as we reach it, our call-in number is 940-221-2107. The next matter is, usually give a little COVID update. There's been recent changes that aren't necessarily very pleasant. I'll give you a little of that right now. Young County has tested 14,460 individuals, and that was as of yesterday. There are 11,502 negative tests, 2,946 positive tests. There, at that time, were 12 pending. Total active positive cases that have been tested here in Young County have been 58. And that's current. And of those 58, 38 are Young County residents. cases. There are 50 being treated at home. I did get a note that there had been 58 recoveries, or 58 that had dropped off to the list. So those numbers will change later on this afternoon. There is 8 in the hospital with COVID that are hospitalized. This is, I believe, more than we've ever had. 3 of those patients are on ventilators, and a 4th one is expected to be, if not already. That's all of the ventilators that the Graham Regional Medical Center currently has. They do have 2 coming, I think I understood, from the state resources. I suppose that's our what do you call it? Our region 3, I believe it is. Can't call that acronym now, but no, not TD. It's our medical emergency unit. Region 2 and Region 3 is out of Denton and RAC, I believe they call it. So I suppose where those ventilators are coming from. I'm going to read you this that Shane Cornell sent to several of us. So there were 15 new positive cases in the last 14 days. This came late yesterday afternoon or early in the evening. Currently, there are 58 positive cases tested in Young County, of which 38 are Young County residents. We did have 28 positive cases drop off. I said 38, it was 28. 28 cases drop off the list since last update. So the overall number today is down. However, the big rise in number always comes at the end of the day on Monday. So we're prepared for that total rise. There are 8 patients in the hospital at the GRMC with COVID. 3 of those patients are on ventilators, and 1 more is on a BiPAP oxygen unit that may need a ventilator very soon if their condition does not improve. The 3 vent patients need an ICU bed, but all transfers have been denied. We've tried the entire state of Texas and 4 neighboring states to no avail. 100% of all COVID hospitalizations over the past several weeks have been unvaccinated. I do not have vaccination status on all the other people that have tested positive but have not required a hospital stay. Dr. Martin did a Facebook video with the Chamber of Commerce that is posted to the GRMC Facebook page, as well as the Chamber's page, in which he details some of the stats on vaccinations. I encourage all of you to view it, as it will help answer many questions being posed by people. They stressed to me that kind of in a storm, I guess you could say, with the ability to hospitalize patients with COVID as we're under right now. And he did mention that all of those, at least all of those hospitalized cases were Delta variant positive. So that's the circumstance that we're under, and that's developed over just the last week or 10 days. Be vigilant. There may be some limitations that we might put back on courts, locations, distancing, and I don't think that we'll mandate yet any face coverings. It'll be on your own. If it makes you feel comfortable to wear, for sure wear them. You won't be turned away at the door, I guarantee that. So, just don't know. right here at school start. It's one of the variants, it's the variant that's the most contagious, they tell me. So I'll be very aware of gathering in large crowds and avoid that if all possible. Just be vigilant on where you go and how you feel. Protect others, including yourself if you can. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3. The public comments and after presentation, these are no action items. Just give them the update. Our recent hotel receipts for hotel occupancy tax. This is from the Wildcat Ranch Resort. It was $8,179.60. I think that would probably be for the June, maybe the July, I think the June report. And then there is a note in your package with regard to the views I will call them. It has to do with our 8th administrative judicial region. And file. They're not too expensive. $1,093.52. I don't remember just exactly how many counties are in that 8th judicial region, but there are several. Is there any other announcements that need to be made, or if there's no about, or that anybody else out here in the county would like to be aware of? No, we'll move on to I'll ask the court, I guess, pass down to item number 10. We've got several members here of the Historical Commission that would like to address the court, give them a proposal. If it pleases the court, we'll do item number 10 following. Continue on. Okay. Susan Smith,
So, as the Commissioners Court is aware, the Young County Historical Commission was legislated in the 1960s as the historic preservation organization for the county. We are the local arm of the Texas Historical Commission, and we don't have a home. We have a P.O. box that graciously the treasurer lets us get our mail at. But we are considering taking a fairly large step pretty soon that we'll talk to you all about at a later date to try to step into more of a preservation role, which is what we're legislated to do. And so this, right, preserving our history and documenting it. And we've wanted to do survey work and a lot of things for several years and just haven't had the opportunity and the feet on the ground. But James is going to present to you an idea that we've come up with to help us have more of a presence and be more accessible and help us to step into this larger role that we hope we can perform for the county.
Well, quite frankly, you did a good job for the last several years, and I know the Historical Commission is established many years ago here in Young County. So, and it's moved up and down. We've had good years, not so good years.
And we seem to be on an upswing. Membership is coming back up. We're getting more people involved. We're being able to be more involved with the community. In doing so, we don't have, like she said, a home. Her office houses a lot of our stuff is her personal work. We've got stuff in the jury room up here, stored where we don't have a home. Our proposal is the 21 jail building. It is 100 years old this year, this year. November. And the end of this year, we're gonna try to have a historical marker dedication. It has achieved historic,
Recorded Texas landmark, which is the highest marker you can get at state level, and it offers some protection to the building and recognizes its architectural significance. So it's really a good thing.
and the marker's been awarded. We hope to have a marker dedication and, along with a birthday party for the building to get the community back aware of the significance of the building. That would be towards the end of the year. As it sits right now, it sits empty. The bottom floor of it would make an ideal home for our historical commission with a room for recording local histories, restoring, gathering all of our stuff into one space, to have a space to meet with potential investors in the historical part of the community. We're also trying to get some grant writers and philanthropic groups to come in and do some work historically within the community. This would give us a professional place to meet with them instead of trying to buy or borrow wherever, or Dairy Queen, or which is where we are right now. We've gone over and looked at the space without much of anything to it. It could be turned into an office space that would suit us ideally. The cost on it should only be the electricity to the commission or to the county, and it keeps the building within the county also.
You're not talking about moving any interior walls or anything like that?
No.
You're just using the,
Basically, most of those interior walls are concrete 4 inches thick. They're not moving. There was we were looking at an idea to put a museum through a lot of it. That still is a possibility in a room or two, but as far as opening it up, and it's not feasible. Those walls are solid concrete. But as it sits, it could work for us for an office. And for storage of our records in a secure, single place where they can be accessed by the public.
And also possibly as an archives. I know the Young County Museum is really looking at collecting artifacts, but, you know, the Grand Public Library is closed on Saturdays, and so if anybody wants to read the Carrie Crouch book, you have no access. We have a copy, and so we would be providing service to the community as an archives as well. We could come in and do research on weekends if you needed to, and we would do it volunteer staffing. Jim Hammond suggested we try to be open at least 2 days a week and specific days so people know when they can come. And it could just fill a definite need for the commission, but also hopefully a need within the community and for people that want to do historical research as well. And then long term, if people do need to or want to donate papers, if the county needs a place to store some records, we've got those upper floors that the public doesn't have to have access to. So ADA does not have to become an issue if this does become a larger project later on.
And it gives the people a place for the people to donate their records. Right now, there's not really any place safe. Yes, you can donate it to the commission, but where are they going to put it?
like anything that's donated to, historical people generally have to be accepted to the county. Also.
Through the county also, yes.
Right.
You know,
Right. And that's would give a place on county property that's,
well,
ultimately, we derive our power through your court, so,
and you are just picking up the first book.
yes.
Right.
There's quite a bit of room, and it's decent.
It's decent. You and I've been through it a couple of times recently.
Are you asking something of the court, or you just asking us?
We're
to
asking
consider it,
permission
think about
to-
it? Or are you coming back at another time?
We're asking permission now to set up as the historical commission within the first floor. We're asking the commission to continue to pay the electricity bill.
We're already paying.
You're already paying at this point, so.
I think it's gonna need a little bit of work on exterior doors, locks, things like that, be replaced, so, I'm not opposed to using it. Maybe it would have to come along, you know, in a few weeks, rather than immediately. So
Yes.
it's worth having questions for.
Susan, what brought the commission, what's the, why did you,
What's the impetus?
yes, the grading of the building, how did you come up with that?
I'm sorry, the grading of the.
Yes, what I mean is it's a recorded Texas historical landmark. That classification is different than just a plaque by itself, correct?
It is. So, in the state of Texas, there's only one designation that a building can receive. We did a historical marker application for the Henson's house over in the junior high a few years ago, and it was turned down. It's a very select designation in that the building has to be in very pristine condition, and with that building over there, the only thing from an exterior point of view is the western porch that's been built in. And they looked at it from that perspective of how similar does it look to its original 1921 condition. And it also looks at the fact that C.H. Leinbach was a significant architect. He's built 2 other courthouses within the state of Texas. And in my mind, I don't know as much about commercial and government architecture as I do about civil architecture, but people didn't really utilize architects, and so it's my feeling that it was a big step for the county to go out and find an architect to solve the problems that there were with the 1878 jail. And so they looked at all of those things from a design standpoint. It's got some beautiful prairie style accents, things that aren't typical of just a normal building. And so the state recognized it for that. And it's very hard for a building to get that designation.
Okay, with that designation, how does that tie the county up?
Okay, so here's the thing. It offers a level of protection to the building. And it is the only designation that offers a level of protection. So if we needed to do something to the building, like if we decided to take out that porch build-in, you just present the idea to the Texas Historical Commission. And it's one of those two-way processes, like I'm sure you're very familiar with. You present the idea, they come back and say, we would prefer that you do it this way, and so it's a back and forth dialogue. So it's a great protection for buildings because it can't be raised without that dialogue. And that was a large part of our purpose for getting a market for that building, because it's 100 years old, it's substantially built, and we didn't want to see anything happen to that building. And now it has some level of protection. But it's
So in other words, the state has the final say in what happens.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
State
saying?
has,
So why would you?
if the county were to decide to raise it or sell it or substantially change it, you would have to go through that dialogue. It would give a chance for the public to speak, for y'all to address the THC and state your reasoning behind it.
So what you actually did is you signed a contract with the state of Texas for that, correct?
well, the
No, we
commissioners.
filed the paperwork, just the statement, this is what the building is, and we would like a historical marker. They returned with, this is the type of marker that we would like to use.
But yet it's still a contract.
I think what Jimmy is referring to is my signature is on a document that certifies that building belongs to Young County, Texas.
It does, and it certifies that you gave permission for us to write that marker application, and that you would accept the marker if it was issued.
Okay, that's my point.
Uh-huh.
What gives him the right to make that decision?
Well, the county owns the building,
Okay.
and as the,
We're
No.
Our chief executive, Jimmy, certified that building, you certify that it's not our building, that it doesn't belong to us?
I'm saying the court didn't certify it.
No.
If you enter a contract,
Elected official can certify that that building belongs to
you
us.
cannot do that. If you enter a contract, anybody, the court has to agree on that contract.
There wasn't any contract
It's
signed.
not,
It
it's
was
not really a
certification.
contract,
Yes,
Nelson.
ma'am.
What it
Yes, ma'am,
was,
it is.
what-
It is a contract.
it's an application with the state asking for recognition is what it
Right.
is, okay?
Right.
And it's not a contract. They don't have, the only thing they can do, and I hate to say this out loud, you're putting me in a bad spot, because I would tie myself to a building in a second if I thought that it was worth tying myself to. It sets up, if anything were to happen to that building, it sets up a dialogue of protection for it. There's nothing to say that we couldn't go in there and paint those interior walls pink without permission. What it's saying is that if there's something that alters the exterior, we have to have a dialogue. And it's for the protection of the building and the history that it represents. It's not a contract. They don't have a lien against the building. I've misspoken and said lien before, and I don't mean that. It's just kind of like they're recognizing that we have an asset, just like the Coca-Cola building on 4th Street is one of 2 in the state of Texas that still exist. And if I went and asked Jill, can we do a historical marker? She would say, yes, let's do a historical marker. They don't have a lien against that building. It's not a contract. It's just recognition that it's something special.
Really, I won't disagree with you, but I talked to the commission myself, and it is a contract on there. And when you sign something stating that you give permission for somebody else to have the authority to tell you what you can and can't do, that's a contract.
Look, they're not, they're in a dialogue. I mean, ultimately,
I understand
you
what
can
you're
do
saying
what you
about
want
their-
to, but
I
it's just
understand
60 days
But
that they
the
say you
city's
can
in the
do.
same situation over here with the old post office, old post office. They need new windows in there, but they can't get new windows that's cheap enough that they can afford, because it's under the same preservation as what y'all put this under.
Right, but Jimmy, I was there for that meeting when the THC came, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, I shouldn't have called you by your first name, but I was there that day, and so what their idea is, and I'm quite running over time, there are ways to mitigate these things. There are ways, all those need are just new little sashes, and THC is willing to work with people. It's just trying to do this in a historically appropriate way. So there are ways to make that work within the budget. THC is just offering tools that we might not know about to help come to that resolution.
Okay, so we've got.
I know we're all talking, I'm sorry.
Public hearing, I appreciate that. I'm not opposed to it at all. I disagree with Mr. Bobby immensely.
True, true.
Immensely, I disagree with you. So, we'll take this up under consideration and bring it back to the court.
Okay. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 10:01. We'll move to item number 9. This is a public hearing, and to consider and take possible action upon Apex Wind Energy Reinvestment Zone. I believe number 3, this is, number 1 is to consider the application of Young Wind LLC for the designation of a certain area of Young County, Texas as a reinvestment zone for tax abatement to be known as Young County Reinvestment Zone, Young Wind number 3. Is that correct, Bob?
Yes, sir.
Establishing the boundaries thereof and providing for an effective date. Take up for consideration of an amendment of the previously approved tax abatement agreement with Young Wind LLC pursuant to the provisions of Property Redevelopment and Tax Abatement Act, Chapter 312 of the Texas Government Code, Texas Tax Code, and to consider the possible action regarding a co-use agreement with Young Wind LLC, protect Young County from any adverse consequences county transportation system resulting from Young Men project. This is a public hearing. We have with us Ben Sims, Drew
Stubing, yes, sir.
Hubling, and Natasha Monte from Apex Wind Energy. And Young County also has Bob Bass, who is representing Young County, and I'm going to ask Bob if he will step up here and address the public hearing. Will, before we take any comments, anybody who wishes to speak or talk about this in the public hearing, it'd be, I would like to sign that sign-in sheet. If you would please use your name.
Thank you, Judge. Gentlemen, members of the court, we have three separate items today to consider. The first is an amendment to the reinvestment zone itself. For explanation, I would like to kind of give you a quick history of the project. You will recall back in April, the court approved a reinvestment zone known as Young Wind on April the 26th. That was for a minimum of 300 megawatts up to 500 megawatts of capacity by wind turbines produced or installed by Apex, doing business here as a Young Wind LLC. After that hearing, which the zone was created and a tax abatement agreement was entered into, additional landowners sought to join the project, so the reinvestment zone that was initially created was modified on the 19th of June under what was known as Young Wind number 2, and subsequently additional landowners have sought to be participating in the project. So we're now before the court with the third amendment to the reinvestment zone, bringing its total acreage up to 39,552.37 acres. Now that's the outline of the reinvestment zone, the total acreage within the zone. Not every acre of that zone will have some construction on it, but spacing requirements and the like for maximum efficiency require certain distance between the turbines. So the applicant is seeking to modify the reinvestment zone to number 3. Attached to the resolution is a list of the parcels that were initially involved in the first zone, the properties that were added April 26th, and then the properties that are being added today, along with both a map of reinvestment zone 2 and reinvestment zone 3. So taken together, that's what the purpose of today's hearing is. I will kind of spill over a little bit. In return for the consideration of further expansion, we've negotiated an increase in the minimum capacity of the project from 300 megawatts to 360 megawatts. And that makes a considerable difference in the anticipated revenue stream to the county, up from a little over $500,000 to $662,400. That would be essentially the minimum that you can expect over the 10 years of the project. The project could also, in that expanded footprint, expand upwards above 500. 500 is still the target, but it could possibly reach, depending on spacing, depending on engineering, up to 600 megawatts. So the document anticipates that. Finally, we have a road use agreement that would protect the county for any degradation of the county road structure. from the weight of the equipment being brought in, the landowner, the property, the developer would designate any county roads that it would use, and there would be pre-construction inspection to determine the existing condition of the road. Any roads that needed to be armored up to bear the anticipated weights would be borne, the cost of that would be borne by the developer. They have agreed to a nominal, what I consider, almost every legal truck, 18-wheeler, can go up to 80,000 pounds, but they've agreed to a limit no more than 54,000 pounds without having some liability or exposure for the cost and damage that truck might do. So even lighter weight trucks would be protected, the county would be protected for lighter weight trucks. Most significantly, they've agreed to post a $100,000 bond so that if the county, they're supposed to attend to any damages that you hear of are being done within 10 days notice of try to get in there and fix it. You have the option, if it's not repaired in a timely manner, for the county to go in and do the work, but to draw down that bond. So I think it's a pretty fair and protective document. So those are the three sets of documents we're asking you to consider today. I'd be glad to go into any detail on but the first step would be to approve the amended zone. So that's the item that needs to be taken care of first. Any questions, either from the court or from the public?
Lynn, you want to say anything?
I'll speak. Yes, thank you again for having us back, Judge and Commissioners. I do want to speak to the overall size again of the zone, and I understand that what might be an eye-popping number of acres. This is to, out of respect to the county's time, avoid a scenario where we have more people want to join and are adjacent and be denied the opportunity because there's not enough time between start of construction and to go back to the county to give people a chance to join. It is the intent of our sponsor we are working with to build 500 as feasible in the first phase, but there are some things that are out of our control, such as what Encore will allow to be interconnected for operations at the end of 2022. So we do agree to that increase on the minimum, and do want to share that while we said that there is a possibility it goes up to 600, the target is still 500, but we wanted to give the adjacent neighbors a chance to come on board. And whether that is a phase 2 that will approach the county again for another agreement down the road, we just wanted to create an opportunity where folks could come to us without taking up all of this time to increase participation. We've had certain folks that are interested in joining, but these leasing efforts, these are big decisions that people have to make with their family's land. I can't, in good faith, say I would really expect many people to make a decision in a matter of 6 weeks for an agreement that's going to last a couple of generations. It's a big decision that people come to for their own reasons, and we would rather than introduce another delay and another approach to the county, give more people a chance by creating a zone that really opens up more opportunity. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ben. Is anybody out here in the general public wish to speak with regard to the intent of expanding the reinvestment zone, include reinvestment zone number 3 or Young County's tax abatement agreement in general? Regard to the road use agreement that we may be entering into. I don't have my copy of that right here, but I think it's been put out.
I've got a question maybe for Ben or construction end of it. When you have a minimum bid, a minimum pick and choose the areas those are built within these three amended reinvestment zones? They don't have to start with the first one. They might agree.
They would be free to put the turbines that, where they think they can do the maximum.
Any location, so then we'll do it.
Essentially, what you've done is you've created one large zone, but you've had to do it by adding adjacent territory to it. So it's really, after each amendment, it becomes one zone, in essence.
So once they start the construction, the whole 39,000 acres is eligible for a acre fee during construction phase.
Yes, property that is leased within the 39,000 acres will all be eligible to participate in the phase one.
Even though they're actually not getting tower, they're still eligible for a per acre fee during the construction phase.
Yes.
Yes, that question that I'm not follow up on it a little bit. Nearly what you're asking is, do you have lease agreement, all of those within that?
No, and that's sort of what I was speaking to earlier, is that we are in certain stages of negotiation with leases with members that are in that list. But we do at this time have over 30,000 acres leased.
That's your phase two.
I would point out, just both the lease agreements with the landowners and state law requires at the end of the useful life of this project, that all of the installed infrastructure would be removed and the land remediated to essentially its original state. They even have to take a concrete foundation down 3 feet below grade. So a lot of people have expressed concern about what happens if the project fails or if the government finally reaches the end of its life. State law now requires it to be remediated.
Expected life is
Well, 30 years probably. It's probably anticipated somewhere in that 30 years they may repower the project, so it could be indeterminate amount of time.
as technology changes, prospect of repowering is greater.
Vice versa, I mean, we could, some cold fusion or something that comes along that we haven't been able to develop yet could replace all of the alternative sources with something that has unlimited power forever. I don't know. Who knows what we'll come up with in the next 100 years.
I don't know, I already got one there, so.
My grandfather was convinced that man didn't land on the moon because it would have knocked it out of the sky. Man figured it out.
Any comments from out in the public? Pro or con? Be for or against?
I have a couple of questions, if it's okay.
Can't hear you down there.
Sorry. I realize I'm a little late to the party, but I have a couple of questions. Is that appropriate?
I ask those.
Who determines when the project is a fail or no longer in need, and when that time comes that they be removed?
Bob, for being, can better answer that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
She needs your name.
I'm sorry, Lindsay Taylor.
Generally speaking, that would be a business decision on the part of the operator of the facility that no longer has essentially profitability. I assume they would decommission. Ben, you may speak to that.
I would also add that some of the landowners that have a lease with us, if they were no longer receiving payments, they're going to raise it as well.
So the court and any of the officials don't have any say in that? Is that correct?
far as when it's not viable?
Yeah.
I don't know.
We've got no call there.
The only role the government plays in this is granting a tax abatement for certain parts, and it's the equivalent of the 70% tax abatement on the capital value of the net value of the asset
For the 10-year.
for that 10-year period. At the end of the 10-year abatement period, it goes on the tax roll at full remaining taxable value.
And is there going to be any compensation for neighboring landowners? This will affect their land values dramatically.
Well, that's been talked about some bit. Some people think that it will affect land values. There have been studies that have indicated that it had virtually no effect on land values into the future. I can't answer that specifically for any particular locations, even in Young County. That's
If I could speak just on behalf of the company, we certainly meet with any neighbors that are interested, and we sign agreements that don't even give us the right to put anything on the property, but do give them some compensation for these neighbors.
Oh, I'm sure you would offer compensation.
There's been really, I've been doing these projects for about 20 years, and have gone back and after years after a project is built. Frankly, I have seen no true evidence of a decline in property values. Is there some detriment to aesthetics? I think we can say, yes, there's going to be, in some people's view, windmills are an eyesore, and others they're somewhat attractive. It just is sort of an opinion as but factually there doesn't appear to be any detriment to the landowner's value.
But appearance absolutely affects the market
I'm
value.
not going to argue that with
I mean,
you.
that's a
They're going to be
huge-
visible from a long way off, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I just wondered. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Well, this is one of those things that we're not trying to limit any use of anybody's land or anything like that. Only thing that this court is dealing with is tax abatement. Whether or not, we've already granted a tax abatement. This is a public hearing on the amendment and such. So we'd just be extending that, I guess you would say, with some modified language on that. But it's revenue, public revenue, that will be coming to Young County in a substantial amount. It'd be real difficult for the court to say no to, because we don't have any other source for that kind of revenue other than the property itself, and we know what that means. So we can't raise that kind of money for anything else. Government, we hear the term, let's operate this place like a business, and to a great extent we try to do that. One of the business's purpose is to raise revenue for the use of the company. In this instance, the company is public, and the services that the county government provides, and the services that other tax entities in the reinvestment zone would provide or could provide. The only way that they can provide those services that are demanded is with some revenue. So I'm not real crazy about the I've looked at about enough to win terms that I want to look at, but I sure don't want to increase taxation anymore than is absolutely necessary for us to operate, provide the services that our citizens public want. So we don't have any, our our interest there is the monetary resource that the wind farm provides. We can get into whether or not it's a viable source. It is a viable source of electricity, whether it's viable enough to provide what is needed. I would argue that point, but that's a discussion for a different place at least. So that's my stand on this. It'd be real difficult to turn down the revenue just to bring the Young County government and its other taxing entities within that zone.
John, I've got a question. What's it gonna do to our property taxes when they put these turbines on property? If she decides to go with this project, if she's in a place where they're gonna surround the place, so it's either look at them and not join or join them. So if she decides to go with these wind turbines on her property, what's it gonna do to the property tax in that place?
Well,
Because she's gonna be getting revenue off of that.
The tax abatement is for the improvement to the real property. It doesn't affect the real property values itself. The only, and I
So
don't
her
know,
property tax won't go up because of these turbines.
your real property values won't go up. In fact, the additional $600,000 has a dampening effect on the tax rate. So it's possible, and I'm not promising anything, because a lot of
So
very.
if it has a dampening effect on the tax rate, that's what she was bringing up. If it crushes the tax, dampens this tax rate down, and this property's got turbines, and she's next door, whether, does it not dampen her property tax down too?
Well, it dampens the property tax. It may not, that's not necessarily saying that the land values change. It's just saying the tax rate changes. And it's, I understand it's sort of a complicated formula, but this should not have effect on land values.
To clarify, it would be because there was more money coming in to the county for taxes, right? Not because the values were up, but because there's an injection of tax inflow into the county, which if they chose at some point, they could look at lowering taxes potentially. But that's the dampening effect.
It's not a potential reason to raise taxes.
Absolutely.
it won't change the valuation process of the land. If it's valued as agricultural land, it'll still be valued as agricultural land.
As far as
Yeah.
taxation is concerned, which is different than actual market value. So they're speaking on taxation, but I was speaking on actual market value. If you decided you did not want to be surrounded by wind turbines anymore, and you wanted to sell the land, it would dramatically affect your market value.
I agree 100%.
And that's okay.
I'll
The young
take my
lady,
stance on the
the
turbines.
young lady is 100% effective. I mean, correct. If you don't believe it, ask any realtor in this town, or any landowner that owns turbines that they're planning on, these on, they've tried to sell all.
I think the county, one day eventually, this is my opinion, is gonna regret it for having this done. I mean, I'm not saying my wife and I are not gonna have them, because, like I said, we're gonna be surrounded, so we gotta make a decision to be part of it, or to lose our value on our property. So, but I really believe that one day we'll regret this.
Well,
If you put them
That's
on there,
just-
you're
that's
going to
my
go around
opinion.
and sell it.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's some argument there for, Tommy, you
John,
want to speak?
yes, sir,
Come on up
I'd
here.
like to. I've talked to more landowners about wind turbines than any man in West Texas. I've looked at West Albuquerque, Texas County, these things. Wind turbines do devalue your property, they devalue the neighbor's property. You try to sell a ranch, it's got a wind turbine on it. Or try to sell one that's next to it. We had some land for sale, my cousin did, out here west of Murray. About 2 miles west of Murray. West, what, 578? And the road had the land, had these guys written back for a good price. And I said, what? He said, well, they're backing out. I said, what's their deal? Well, they've got wind of this wind farm that's coming east of it. I said, yeah, but that's 2 miles away. Don't care, they're out. They don't want to be close to it. What happens? We wind up taking a lesser value of that land than what we were getting offered by that person. In a market that's just a runaway market. A runaway market.
My cousin that had some land right there next to it, we tried to put with it to sell. Wound up taking $200 or $300 an acre less than we did. Because he was stomped down because there's no interest in it. Now, don't tell me that your A&M study speaks for that, because it doesn't. It's some study that A&M did at the expense of the backing of some probably wind company. And they got some marketing person out of maybe University of Texas Business School that wrote some kind of a synopsis about it. And look who funded it. Go to the real world. Go to these realtors here in town. Go to everybody that's tried to sell land. McKinney family in Orchard City. Go talk to them. Go talk to people that old, what they call the Crooked Tree Ranch between Albany and Abilene. 5 years, can't sell it.
Monte County.
Well, other counties. I'm speaking from experience, and I'm speaking from, I don't have an axe to grind one way or the other. And I feel sorry for people who get run over. It's not about who's right, it's about what's right. And what's right is what's fair to your neighbors. Anytime that almighty dollar's got to drive every damn decision, there's gonna be a lot of things bad that happen for employees as well as customers. In this case, it's landowners and customers.
Okay, Tommy, do you think that county government or local government should control the regulation of land and tell you what you can do with your property?
Should tell me what I could or couldn't do.
Yeah.
Where's that coming from?
Well,
It's a free world. It's a free world. They do anything they want to do. I'm telling you that it's not, that when you do something on your property that diminishes your neighbor's property, that may not be very considered.
well, it might
I'm
not
saying,
be.
I know it's legal to do. I'm not arguing that point. Is that what we want? Is that what we want? Is that what we need? Do we have to have that?
I just soon not have them, but
Yes.
I like the revenue, I
Yeah.
sure do.
And that's,
And you
there
do
are three
too.
categories of people that are in there. The people that need the money, a few of these ranchers, this probably keep a few of them in business, a few. Some that just want the money, that drives every decision for them. And then some that don't want for these reasons I mentioned. So what's right? People, cater to the people that don't need the money, or the people that don't. There's more taxpayers, I promise you, in this county and in this state that vote against it, I promise you.
What appeal are you making to the court?
I'm just telling you that you tap the brakes and think about what you're doing to other people. Think about what you're doing. You're making decisions, and I had heard about questions asked you this morning. One of them is at lower taxes. If you've got a producer of oil in your place, your land, John, you get taxed on it. That's yes, you do. If you've got a producing wind turbine on your place, even though the assets don't belong to you, you don't own the oil property, or even unless you're the producer, you don't get the you get taxed there. Now, what's fair about that? Fair's got to be something other than a place where you pin a blue ribbon on a field. It's got to be something different than that. If you do this thing, you pay taxes. Do not abate those ad valorem taxes, even though the wind turbine company is probably obligated to pay them, but bring them into the county coffers from get-go unabated. Because you don't get abated on well, yes, except I think you do get some kind of a
Severance.
the police allowance, something like that. Maybe that.
Well, oil and gas is totally different. It belongs to the land. It's a piece of your land. You're
Well,
getting
so
that.
what- well,
All this is.
The area above the land belongs to the land, it's controlled by the landowner. Not any different.
Well, he owns the air rights, but he doesn't own the land. No.
Well, he owns the mineral rights too.
He owns the mineral rights, that's tied to the realty, but the air that goes across your property, that's free air.
Where's on the area? I told you this guy was gonna be in favor of what they do.
I'm not,
I heard your question.
you're making statements
Yes, I am.
that supposedly are fact that are not fact.
Well,
So I'm just trying to
I'm
correct
not
the record.
making, it's not fact. You own the air rights above your land.
You own air rights.
Yes, you
People
do.
can't
What's
interfere
different
with the
than
air
that?
rights.
What's different than
But the
that?
wind that goes across your land is not yours.
what is different about the air rights, the wind going across your land, when it's over your land, than minerals that are under your land, that you might.
Well, it's a matter of law, it's a matter of law.
I know that's the law, that's why I'm speaking. I know it's the law.
Well, it's just the wisdom of the thing, that the minerals are under there, but they pull oil and gas out from your, they may have a hole on your ground that's pulling oil from several acres away.
That's right. Is that their law over there? They haven't agreed to it.
The law of the state of Texas and generally of the
I'm
United
thinking,
States
I'm
says that
thinking
they
it's
can do
principle,
that.
I'm thinking it's principle and fairness is not right.
We'll take it up to the legislature.
Well, it will be, I'm sure, because that's where the reason I'm here, don't, because a lot of that is gonna be coming up.
We have nothing to do with that.
Oh, then you don't have to think about it.
You know, you're asking questions
Yeah.
about what is right, what is right.
Don't talk down to anybody.
I wasn't talking down to you, I said, no, I wasn't.
Well,
Buddy, I was.
I know you, I know you don't have anything to do with that, I don't either.
Exactly.
But the voters
I
do,
wish we
and
did.
that's who you represent.
Yeah.
You have the right to, as a good share of your voters, to understand these things, and make decisions that's in embarrassing, for most of them, not this part of it.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And that's what I try to do.
That's what I say. Okay. I said a lot more than I intended, I didn't intend to say a thing out here. But I had a little conversation out front with Apex people this morning. And I don't think they even talked about this before, they didn't have any questions or solutions except some study that's been at Texas A&M that said it does not diminish the value of that land or the neighborhood. Now, how many of you in here believe that? Raise your hand. 3 people make this. 3 people make this.
Well, as I said, I've been doing these projects for about 20 years, and when
I rest my case.
You haven't made a case, sir. You made a lot of hot air statements.
Well, I told the man something way back there a while ago.
You should not be talking to this man like that.
And if
You are belittling yourself at this moment, correct?
No.
We've all looked at him.
Talk to him, he's the one making the accusation. He said hot air statement, right? If you don't,
Sir, all I can
if
tell
you
you
think
is-
this is hot air, you're dumb as Billy Goat.
Well, that may be.
If you don't like it.
It takes a goat to recognize a goat.
So I guess so, maybe so, but I see one. You're sold out.
Anybody else here make a statement? Any endorsement?
I just have one quick question. Kirk Bennett.
Please stand up. Say your name.
Kirk Bennett. Has Young County done a reinvestment zone for any, just off the top of your head, can you think of any other reinvestment zone?
Yes.
I think there was a solar farm presented. Has there been any others over the last, since they passed the legislation for the chapter, is it 312 or 313?
312.
Okay, because I know a lot of other industries, like Tesla did it down in Travis County, so other industries are applicable to follow that legislation, so I didn't know if any Young County, if anybody else has that.
Did you ask if we had signed it or created it for reinvestment?
Yes, sir.
We created one north of the ground here for a solar farm. That did not develop. It was all of the abatement agreements and all of that were executed and signed, sealed, delivered, I guess you would say. And it's going to be my guess that the developer could not sell the project. And it is now defunded and that reinvestment zone went away. We have a reinvestment zone, or did, in the north part of the county for 75, I believe, megawatts of the Trinity Wind Farm, which mostly is in Orchard County. And we've done a reinvestment zone in the eastern part of the county where there's 26 megawatts of the Senate Wind Farm that came over into Young County. Those are parts two. And now there is this one. I don't tell you that I'm in great favor of the tax abatement law, and quite frankly, wind development in Texas has been going on for at least 30 years. And you would think that in 30 years, you know, it came on to be these tax credits and things that the production, these wind developers, things get. You would think that in time, what the intent of that was to get that up and running where it would be productive on its own. They're still going on today. You would think that in 30 years, they would progress to the point where tax abatement would be an issue, and they may not be as big of an issue as they were 15 years ago, but they're still important in the development and of the counties. It's not only wind energy, it's solar energy, and it's other industrial things too that make application to different counties, different cities, school districts, things like that for abatements of tax for a period of time. In the past, it came where you would say, no, we don't want any of that, and so the development would just move to another location that would agree to tax abatements. So it's a matter of whether Young County wants the revenue that's applicable out there. We can't control, and I don't want to control. I don't have any intent to control what somebody does on their own private property. You know, we'd get into a constitutional issue there if we wanted to try to do that. We can make some land use restrictions to a great degree, but we can't really control what a person does with their property. In this instance, there are landowners there that want to lease their property for this wind development. I don't necessarily want to stand in that way. I frankly would probably, well, I couldn't speak about it at all if it was my property included with it. I'd have to recuse myself, not say anything. But I can tell you, I'd probably look at it a little bit differently than I do if 10 of those turbines were going to be on my property. That would generate some income that I've never had before on that property. So, you know, you got to be looking from where you're sitting and what you're doing. But we've actually already adopted a tax abatement scientific agreement to do that. This would be an amendment of that, which would be included. The only other source we would have that revenue is your tax property, your property that you own now. So with regard to the ag value, I don't think that's going to affect the ag value on your land as far as tax purposes, and I'm not sure about the area that the turbine actually sits on. It might be, is it?
So far, ag value's been retained on that land that has the turbine on it. Now, directly under it, it's, you know, that may be, but it's such a small piece usually of the overall property based on that.
Turbines, we're not immediately taxing them, we're abating those taxes for a period, or a portion of those taxes for a period of 10 years. But in lieu of that, Young County will be receiving a good bit of money. Graham ISD will be receiving a good bit of money. Almy Hospital District and Graham Hospital District will both be receiving substantial amounts of money. Or if none of these agreements were taken, maybe they wouldn't receive any. Maybe none of them would receive any. So that's the issue that we're trying to deal with right now today is how much, what, where, as far as the reinvestment zone. These will be attached to the original investment zone, reinvestment zone. That's my stand on that.
I really don't have anything further other than to point out, as Mr. Bennett did, that the Chapter 312 covers any sort of industrial development. And so counties that have granted tax abatements for gas plants, pumping stations, commercial development of various sorts, large projects, sometimes smaller projects. Texas legislature has not given Texas counties much by way of authority to engage in industrial or economic development, but it has given us tax abatement. It's something like the old saw about if only tool you have in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It is what we have, and it does bring, in some cases, if it's a large project, as this would be, it brings considerable revenue to the county that helps keep your tax rate low. It's money that's coming to you outside of ad valorem taxation. And so that pool of money at the end of each year will be counted into your budgeting. It will take some effect off the pressure to raise taxes. So to that extent, it's a good thing for everybody in the county. It may or may not lower their tax rate, but it should help control the rise of the tax rate. So it does benefit every taxpayer in the county. That being said, the landowners who receive lease payments, certainly it helps them. And to those who are affected indirectly. Again, I differ. You know, we've gotten in a weird place in our country where we no longer trust science, or we don't acknowledge training and education. So, you know, people have done in-depth academic studies of property value degradation and have found that there is none. And anecdotal testimony from real estate developers, well, of course they're going to say that. It helps them raise they get higher commission off of higher land values. So, I mean, they're any effect that they can claim, you know, you have to question whether that's valid or not. So anybody's able to form their own opinions about anything. Everybody's got an opinion. All I can say is all of the science has said there's no real detriment to the land property value. So I apologize to anybody who was offended by that statement, but that's my experience as well. And so we've already granted a tax abatement to this project in its original form. That cows out of the barn. What we're doing now is amending that agreement to increase your minimum megawatt capacity, to bring you an extra $150,000 or so. So I don't know that it's much more complicated than that.
Can I make one more comment? He talks about anecdotal evidence. By some real estate guy. That would be further from the truth. I'd invite you, I'll look you up. You'll take off and call Richard here, go to New Mexico line, come back, and we'll stop and talk to them. We'll talk to the people in those areas that have bought and sold land, and realtors that do that, that's the ones that know. They don't have it. Even they have to take, let the prices stomp down, they have to take less price because of those next to, or because of those on the land. That's not anecdotal, that's reality. Those are facts.
I didn't catch your name, sir.
Tommy Donald.
Mr. Donald, and I'm not doubting you.
But don't call it anecdotal, man.
Well,
What
I can tell you that when I've gone back to the tax.
You've got an opinion and an agenda to.
No,
Yes, you do.
I
Yes,
don't.
you do, because you're not open-minded. You've got an agenda and an opinion, but you're wanting to present as facts here today.
I can tell you I've worked with these things for the last 20 years or so, and I've gone back to the counties where have developed wind farms, solar farms, and I've not seen the appraised values of those properties go down.
Not by the Young County tax
The
office.
appraised value.
Not by the Young County taxpayers office. They raise them up every year, but everybody gets taxed on ag exemption. That's the one you need to worry about losing, guys. That's the one you need to worry about losing someday. The fact that you're putting income producing property on top of somebody's landowner's land, paying him, not paying that for taxes to county, that's the problem that I'm speaking to. That's one of
This
them.
is for a 10-year period only.
Well,
After that, it goes on the payroll.
you guys, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it's their electricity to grant them that, get it from the get-go. Don't give them 10 years on that portion of it. Take it. Don't let them go to the end of this. Most of the landowners I know that have put these things on their place have put them on in self-defense. Because we're gonna have to put up with them. And I know, you guys don't do up and go with us. You don't believe this. Said, well, I know somebody used to, so somebody taking it. It's reality, guys. I've been there. I've called on every ranch in West Texas and eastern New Mexico and East Texas, part of Oklahoma, New Mexico. I know these guys, and I know what's happened. They said, well, we weren't going to do it. I know families been back down there, but one family that wanted the money, didn't need it, they wanted the money. The rest of them said, well, we're going to put up with it, we might as well do it. And that's the reason most people have done it, in self-defense, not because they want it. They'd rather not have the whole thing. And I'll show you, I have a good friend in Abilene, has a big ranch in Albany and Abilene, they went for it. And he was sick to death during the building stage. Didn't the cash started coming in, he kind of backed off just a little bit. And he'd tell you he wouldn't do it again. He would not do it again. It's not worth wear and tear. Unless you just gotta have the money. That's the only thing in life. Anytime the bottom line or money drives every decision, guys, there's gonna be a lot of things that happen that are not good for other people. That's a fact. You see it every day.
I have nothing further here.
Ben? Or this public hearing is concluded.
Which I just went
Again,
into.
excuse me. Well, number one is to consider the application of Young Wind LLC for the designation of a certain area of Young County, Texas as a reinvestment zone for tax abatement, to be known as the Young County Reinvestment Zone, Young Wind number 3. Establishing the boundaries thereof and providing for an effective date. Is there any discussion or the issue here? Bob, do you have anything to say?
As I mentioned earlier, this document kind of walks through a historical recitation of the steps that led to today's action. It recognizes the earlier eligibility of the county to participate in tax payment. Creating the zone is the first step. You have created the zone and you've approved amendment of that zone once before. So this is the third amendment of that zone. It will take effect today. It would cover all of the land that's laid out in 4 pages of property descriptions. And then there are 2 maps of number 2 and number 3 attached. It was part of the official record. This is a prerequisite step. It's just a matter of formality that has to be handled to be valid.
Any of you have any statement, Mike, or any discussion? Anybody? There, present the motion. I'll second that. Any discussion, any further discussion regarding the motion? The motion is Wiley, seconded by any discussion thereof. Ben, you have anything to say?
Thank you.
All in favor of creation of Young Wind Reinvestment Zone number 3, as stated? All in favor? Any opposed?
Gentlemen, I'm going to circulate 3 sets of that document. Creation of the zone requires a signature of each commissioner that votes in favor. You just hand that down. The language, there's language in the reinvestment zone. Sorry. That authorizes the judge to sign on behalf of the court on other documents that may be necessary to effectuate the agreement.
Item number 2 is to take up for consideration an amendment of the previously approved tax abatement agreement with Young Wind LLC pursuant to the provision of the Property Redevelopment and Tax Abatement Act, Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code.
Your Honor, and most members of the public, this is an amended tax abatement agreement. It contains the same terms that the court adopted on April the 26th originally, with the following changes. It increases the minimum capacity from 300 megawatts to 360 megawatts, valued at $1,840 per megawatt. So the $60 you can multiply by 1,840, and that will tell you what the difference in your existing tax abatement agreement is. We added some language to take into account the additional footprint, and we included a new chart to show the values at different levels. The earlier agreement only had essentially one level, so we've added different levels. As the capacity increases, they will know by the time they reach what is known as COD, commencements of operations, they will know what their capacity is at that date, and that will become determinative of your tax. You will receive at a minimum $662,400 annually. It goes up in increments to 400, 500, and 600. As Mr. Sims has stated, the planned size is 500 megawatts, but depending upon this additional footprint may allow some additional capacity up to as much as 600, or there could be a phase 2 at a later date. Right now, a lot of this is dictated by the ability of the grid and to take the generating power. So there's these things, as the court judge pointed out earlier, I hate to throw anybody a damn cloth on anything, but merely because you approve that tax abatement agreement doesn't necessarily mean the project will in fact be built. But Apex is a strong player in the field, and so I expect this project to go forward. But there are variables.
You can pretty well make a statement if it's not abatement, it won't be built.
Yes, sir, I think that's a fair statement.
But when somebody says you're losing someone X amount of dollars, you can't lose what you're gonna pay.
That's correct. This is not a, this is a gain for the county, it's not a loss for the county. More of these hearings have become more contentious in the recent past. I think, I don't know what the reason for that is, but it's a net gain for the county to sign an abatement agreement if the project is built. If the project does build out, you're no worse off than you are today. That being said, those are the changes. I'd be glad to go through. There's a lot of detail in this agreement that we've discussed before. I'd be glad to do it at whatever level the today, but the substantive change is the recognition of additional footprint and the change in the minimum capacity required.
Say one thing else about that is this is not where Young County or the taxing entities herein will not receive a payment, which is called a pilot. In this instance, it's a payment that's in lieu of the tax. It's a partial abatement. In the end, it's 100% abatement to begin with, but it is payment to the county, Young County, whoever else they make the agreements with, of just like Bob said, it's a simple amount of money per year. The only other place that we have to raise any kind of money like that is out of your real property. That's the only negotiating factor we have is if we raise more money or less money as is in that property tax. The government is not put in place to make money. It's in place to collect only the money that is necessary to provide the services which demand no profit in there supposed to be.
Any other questions?
Why should the county subsidize a for-profit company that will probably be for sale to somebody else at some point? Why should the county have to do that? They don't do it for any other business. Why should they do this?
This really is part of the public hearing.
Well,
Public
answer the
hearing
question.
is not appropriate to receive a comment at this time.
He doesn't want to answer it, so I'm reason saying that.
No, sir,
He answered
I will
everything else I said.
answer you, I will answer you
Okay.
from now until the sun goes down,
Let's
if
go.
you want to. But what I'm saying is that the state of Texas has given Texas counties the ability to grant tax abatement, to bring to the county economic development that would not otherwise come.
The county doesn't have to accept that. They don't have to do it.
They don't have to
The
do
county
it.
has to subsidize these guys to get them a for-profit business if they're going to sell.
Everybody that
some-
has an ag exemption gets a, why is that there? If you're gonna give away the tax exemption too, if you're against all the abatement of taxes, then the ag exemption is up for
I
debate.
didn't think ag exemption was part of their subject. Everybody's subject to the same.
You
the
wanna
same
pick and
rules.
choose the ground you talk on, then,
No,
well, then-
ag exemption has the same rule all the way through. It has the same rule all the way through.
yes, sir, it applies to ag
That's
exempt
right,
property.
and it's only because the cattle operation is the poorest business model you can get. Because it costs them more to raise a calf than they can sell one.
Well-
That's the only thing that keeps them in business, is part of the cheap
That
food.
same
and
argument could
politics.
be used here, sir. The wind development would not come here without the abatement. It helps them get over their capital expenditure cost in the first few
But
years
they're
of
a
their.
for-profit company. Why can't they?
It's
why
just,
can't-
it's a philosophical argument you're asking me to talk to you about. The decision was made by the legislature to grant tax abatement, and so the county has done so. That argument is passed,
You're asking the county taxpayers to subsidize some for-profit company.
and the county taxpayer gets some benefit from it. It helps lower their tax rate, or keep it low.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir. It's a matter of math. It's not,
The ones
it's
up
not
north-
opinion, it's
The ones up
math.
north in the county have done that.
I'm sorry?
The ones we have up in the north in the county have, I haven't seen them affect anybody's tax rate.
You would look at the amount of revenue that it brings into the county, that's dollars that don't have to be taxed. It's hard to see it, but it's real. I mean, taxes and land values change all the time. But the more revenue you can bring in from outside of ad valorem taxes, if it's money that's coming in through a pilot payment, as this money is, it's not money that calculates into the tax
Have
rate.
you done any calculations on the value of the revenue that's held produced from the wind turbine, and what, from an economic model and a cash flow standpoint, what that business would be worth?
What the energy will be worth?
What that business would be worth? They've done it because they know what they can sell it for. But you're giving them a sweetheart deal to build something that they're not going to have to pay any tax on. And
They do pay, they're paying 30% of the capital cost for 10 years.
30%, yeah.
And then for the remaining life, 30 years, they pay full value just like anybody else.
30 years is a long time, sir.
10 years is a long time, but 10 years of the lower tax rate brings that into the discount. And then over the 30 years, the economic benefit is very considerable. No other model that I know of brings this kind of
county's
money.
getting better than our taxes.
I don't know that we could talk and change your opinion.
You can't, you stick with the facts you find.
All right. I don't have anything further.
I'll move, we enter into the amended tax abatement to include reinvestment funds and increase in minimum build out.
Ben?
All in favor? Any opposed?
The developer signature should be coming later. The clerk will hold file of that document. The signature for the developer is on its way, but I don't have it right now. We'll just hold filing on it until we have the full document. We do get that, you just attach it to the second signature page. Or sign here. Your Honor, the final document we have is a road use agreement. This is a document that I think you have all seen, but just for public purposes, I'd like to walk through the provisions of that agreement. It authorizes Young Wind to use county roads, of course, as public roads. They would have the right to use them anyway. By way of a road use agreement, though, you can get concessions from a developer if you know that their use is going to degrade the road. Due to the weight of wind equipment, we know that there's going to be fewer trucks than, say, a solar, but and much heavier weights. So we've had discussions and negotiations that they would repair any damage that is accrued to the county roads as a result of that use, where they would believe it to be self-evident from engineering studies that a road isn't suitable for the weights that will be subjected to. They will armor up that road in advance to make it more usable. It's to their advantage to have a road that they can use than to have one that's always a problem. So at the end of that time, those roads will come back to you in the same or better condition than they were in before. Any private roads that they use do not become county roads by this use. They would make a separate deal with any private landowners that they need to cross to get to their project. Any turns that have to be accommodated by the large blades or whatever, those, again, the county would not be involved in negotiating a radius agreement with the landowner. That would be up to the landowner. Just the county roads would be part of our agreement.
That includes any structure, activity, and use necessary with regard to.
And The agreement has them identify the roads before they start that they will use for both ingress and egress. It's not so much on wind, but in a lot of other projects, the independent contracting trucking companies, time is money, and so they sometimes take shortcuts on other roads, and there are penalty provisions for that being done in this case. So roads would be designated and used. No other roads that are county maintained would be involved. Any excavation, boring, that sort of thing would have to meet federal standards and state standards, and so we've made that provision. They would also have responsibility for grading or dust control and traffic control on the roads while being used. Should the county, as I said before, there is provision for a $100,000 bond. And so anytime that the county is required to allow people in and out, if their road is degraded during wet weather, for example, and they can't get out, and the developer can't get it fixed in a timely manner, the county has the prerogative to come in and fix the roads and then be reimbursed for your expense. That's labor, equipment, the whole thing. That's the high points of it. Any questions?
Bob, on this here, if they bore underneath our county road, they still need to come in and get a permit.
If you have an existing order for a
Yes.
boring permit, yes, sir, they still have to prove it.
The same way with our tolls also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's just for our records to show that
Correct.
line is there.
Correct. Any other questions?
Do you have any questions
Okay.
All right, again, I have 3 sets here. Since it is potentially involving more than one commissioner precinct, we've had calls for all signatures, so we'll just tag each one.
John, I had a comment. Have you guys read this agreement that you fixed to sign?
In a moment, Tommy, in a moment.
You fixed to start signing, what we like. You all ready?
Yes, sir, it's been provided.
Have they read it?
Got a motion by Mr. Pruitt. Second by
All part of it. Then we'll need your y'all's signature on this document. One copy of this document will be retained in your public records. One copy will be sent back to concludes my needs for you today, Judge. Have anything else, I'll be glad to.
Tommy, you have something else
It's
you'd
too
like
late,
to say?
Tom, they've already signed it.
Excuse me?
It's too late for my question.
You'll have to come up here, I can't hear you.
I said it's too late for my question. I asked a question before these guys signed this, have they read it?
The answer is yes.
Have they, or you said they didn't provide a copy, have they really read it?
Yes, sir. We were in before the first time we did that.
Well, why is he updating it? Tell me what the changes are.
Because they've expanded the whole
Well,
thing. It includes the roadway and what it
You
had.
hadn't read that part, did you?
originally.
Well, I asked you. Answer is no.
All the answer is yes.
Well, why would you have to update them then?
We've added more territory to the footprint from the original signed
Right, they
document.
hadn't read that part, then evidently, or you don't
Yes,
have
we
to
have,
update them.
Tommy.
The terms of the road use agreement are unchanged.
Correct.
We've been in the hands of these commissioners for weeks, if not months.
With the updates?
Yes.
As
So
soon
he
as
said
the
he had it.
application was made, yes, sir, it was provided to them. These folks are, they're your representative. They take their job seriously.
I know it, they're all good guys, I admit
And
that.
so to suggest that they haven't read documents, legal documents provided to them,
I
is
asked for a yes or
denigrating
no.
to their integrity.
I asked for a yes or no answer,
They answered you, sir. Yes, they read it.
and my question was, why did you have to update them like
Are you listening?
that? Yes, sir, I am.
Are you paying
Yes,
attention?
I sure am.
They've added more road territory, so it needs to be covered by a more up-to-date agreement. That's a simple answer. You're making it more difficult than it needs to be.
You're the one in the first agreement.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Right, I think you can update
Minute break. Back 11:30.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't on.
Next up.
I thought we were on.
How you doing?
I told them that there were definitely concerns and need to see some of
Okay, the road use agreement?
Updated tax abatement, road use.
Get all,
The three agreements you
I'm not
got.
advocating one way or the other.
get all the executions on, yeah.
All right. Thanks for your time. I apologize.
How you
Come in all shapes.
I've got to understand the process. I'm not a big fan of it either, but then.
Understood.
I am a big fan of revenue that it creates. I don't ever think that they ever produces the electricity that we need. You have to be someone. And I do think that 30 years of development ought to need any tax. But we're gonna ask them. Everybody gets less tax.
Yes, sir.
And the process.
Well, we appreciate you and the sponsors that are looking at this project to build it. They've been doing it for a long time, so they're professionals. They know exactly what they're doing. So when you meet them, I think you'll really appreciate them as well.
20,000 acres. Projects like that, but I didn't have oil wells all over here. If I had all that other income, I'd turn it down too, sure. Can't turn down that mailbox, right? Sure. It's just hard, you just can't do it unless wealthy
I've actually
individuals.
been in this. We have a small acreage in the Hill Country. We don't have enough land to do this, obviously. What I do have is, I'm on a deer lease down in South Texas, and they charge us, they charge us full price for that. When I went down there, my two guys, and I was I'm around with this trailer, I'm like, it's like, they had spades us, and we just signed up for a 6-year option. So it's full price. No different than the neighbors that don't have it or people 50 miles away. It's aesthetics, and like you said, I get it. I understand that some people just don't like the way they live.
Hunting activities, things like that, the wildlife gets used to that. Anything that's stationary that does the same thing over and over and over, they get used to that pretty quick. They go along like that. Sure. You know, as far as land value, you know, I don't think that it's going to substantially affect the value of the property. Now, somebody who's coming out of the medical place is coming out here for the wild spaces, sure, on a little piece of Mother Earth, they want to not have to look at those things. I don't understand where electricity comes out. They live in the city, they flip the switch.
That's where it comes from their switch, right?
Where's the water come from? From the faucet.
Where's your trash go?
Where's the police station come from?
The store.
They don't have to raise it, they don't have to kill it. Can you?
Yeah, we've seen it all. I've actually been doing this since 2001, so I can't believe I've been doing this 20 years, but I've seen a lot. It's just getting more and more. People are coming out against it. They think it's a liberal agenda, they have different things.
Well, that's what's driving markets, and they're driving us that have, in most of our life, substantial life, used ranching and farming. That is the only income we have. It long time ago driven us out of the market where you can't add to it. There's no way unless you've got mailbox money to pay for it with.
And these legacy ranches that will go away if there's not substantial, if there's not some sort of...
This family out here, they're independently wealthy. They don't have any, I don't think they have any attachment to the land at all, really. They're looking
but there are other neighbors that are coming into it now too, so
you know, and I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know, they might be investors with you.
Oh, no, they're not. They're not. We do appreciate your time, and again, I do apologize that it brought out some hostility. But...
Okay. Good, thank you.
Yeah, come on, man.
But all the coatings and stuff, and so I'm always afraid because they think it's the same type of property. But now I don't cylinder. I know, but I grabbed by 3 miles west of Mount. That's where it starts. There's 3 of them.
I did in the first one. There was only 1
So, where did you go to court?
I had lots of forward it's kind of creative, but the road crews, so I did go with they're trying to work on the east side, on the county road.
I'm just trying to get some accountability and say, think.
Sir, I think you're in the wrong spot.
Hey. This is my turn.
Well, we're compromising.
You wouldn't have been proud of me this morning. I don't know if you talk, you, but as long as you get the facts and the timeline in your favor, you don't have to worry about it. Just go facts and the timeline.
Oh.
Hey, now don't roll your eyes.
Are you going to the SEC too? Don't get that y'all there.
I think we're going to take my job. I hope so. Maybe.
Oh, we're not putting me on the board. I had that stuff.
Well, he's not going out.
Oh, just working some cases for this week. You are? Good. That's right.
I don't know when we get an answer on this. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
I hope they got their ducks in a row. Pretty concerning for TCU.
Yes, sir.
Not so much you guys are want to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, people want to say this ain't personal. JD Group. Exactly, and I forwarded to my secretary.
Which is great. BYU might be, because they don't play.
Yes, he's out of the jail now.
Hey, Tommy.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have we have 1550, and that's the only thing paint out there. I pulled it from last
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, it was like, this year. It was
Who's talking? Yeah, they do.
Let's see, I pulled it. I'm not gonna shoot anybody, but the sense it was sense out of misery.
No, that's, I like it. We're trying to get out there and trying to run all day. Good ones.
We all just did.
How far? Yeah.
Everybody takes
Number 2 road, 4, 5 roads, up in that section. No, I think 5 steps, we can 9 roads up in the section.
That's not bad.
It's perfect.
All right, well, I saw you in here giving them hell.
I am, you, Tommy?
I'm not either. That's not a reason we're doing
But that's the only answer.
Yep.
At least they can hear it.
Okay, okay.
Steve run out on you? Insufficient answer.
Steve had a doctor's appointment he had to go to. So,
We'll let him go.
Is that what he told you?
yeah, that was it.
No, he's like, here, JD, it's up to you now.
He went to dinner.
Rieger
left you?
Huh?
Rieger left you?
Yeah, he abandoned it.
He's at Burgers
He
and
was
Billiards.
here earlier.
He's at Burgers and Billiards ordering him a burger right now.
Probably. Tell him not to hurry.
Or to bring us all one would be nice. Yeah. Well,
He should put this on.
huh?
Lysville, South Bend, Lysville, South Bend, Matt, what is people? Linda M. Johnson, he's on Lysville.
He should have just ignored it. But you see how it went over Jack, he got out of there, and they had that. Went for it. I understand, back when Commissioner, I think, resigned.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'm going to you.
Don't know if it gets to it, I can't retire. I can't.
Taking all the way
That's
down.
fixed with.
It don't, no, not everybody. Some of them are, some of them not.
I think the board, and I hate the traffic, got into it all the way to Reinvestment, all the way to Reinvestment. Did you lose money? Yes, and it hadn't been owned for a while, so I think he's out of the
Oh, I got that. I'm trying to get a hold of
It was 16. They're, yeah, this year it was, so it's gone down, so that's, we went a little bit over. It's, 640 or 645, okay, let me find it. It's a little one, it's kind of hard to
Give it to him at the court, like this way.
Okay, okay. Matt, how many times
got both of them there. My wife did.
She was mad too, wasn't she? I could tell there's tears.
Boy, she's fought it for a month.
I'm looking, Matt, it's a little bitty,
Yeah, I know. 660, 25, popper.
yeah.
Child welfare.
They don't have to send it.
Okay, 540, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
That's the long way you get.
I was saying 640, it sounds like it. I should have every one of them memorized. I should have, I said. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, but no.
Yep, 545.
Hey, let's just jump to the. Hey, you give me after lunch today. Thanks to JD's cousin.
Who's that?
Matthew.
Oh, Matt's his cousin?
Yes.
I love that.
That's what I told my cousin. Yeah.
He's a good boy, isn't he?
He is. But he's Kennedy.
Well, of course. It makes
I think we
sense.
can pay for it already.
Never thought about it.
What are you gonna name your food? What are you gonna name your food?
It's Jasmine. That is her name.
If you got a designer.
I asked Jamie though, I said, our first Jasmine, Jamie couldn't tell him where he was. He must have a little video. Yeah, exactly. Not others. It's awful.
Really good.
Is it on?
I will, how do you say no lie?
Yeah, but you know, most of them do. And I know we're fixing some, you know, that we're gonna do You what? I may leave before then too.
I've got one good one in there.
Okay. Okay. Marshall. You gotta say it 3 times.
Well, they're checked here full.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Clerk, we'll come back to this thing rolling.
John, let's do the rural fire department.
Yeah, Jamie, I
Let's move on to, that will be item number 16. Move into our budget workshop for a few minutes. We'll come back to order. It's 1:35 or 11:35. We'll be in budget workshop matters pertaining to the budget. We have Young County Rural Volunteer Fire Department here to give us their little presentation and desire.
And they're in 010540.
about 79.
Forward for everybody to go with us.
Did you make it Saturday?
No, I didn't have nothing to do with it.
This
is way beyond my capability. So when I go trying to explain it,
Okay, now who are you?
J.D. Bruton, I'm the president of the Young County Rural Volunteer Fire Department.
Thank you.
And Teresa Jones is our treasurer, and she's the one that prepared our budget for 22, and we're gonna ask for $90,000 because of our ongoing expenses are going up. Insurance went up this year, and they've already told us it's going up again next year. Fuel has gone up, and general expenses on our trucks are going up. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot on trucks several years ago. We had an old fleet of trucks, and we were spending $4,000 putting engines in them. So we updated to all newer trucks, and now we take them to the dealership, and they charge us $4,000 to diagnose the problem. So we didn't gain anything. We got newer trucks that cost more money.
So just yours went up to $12,000.
Not quite. It went up, what we got into on, where we at, Teresa?
I'm on page 2, where it says 2021. Oh, okay, right there, 20.
What we've done is she has paid insurance, always paid it in advance on the year before, and one year we didn't have money in the account, we didn't get a payment from y'all until after, so we paid 1.5 insurances 1 year, and only half an insurance 1 year. Why?
Gotcha.
That is so much different. I got a question mark on my notes. And I got that complaint that 1.5 years was paid on the other. So, but our insurance has went to $40,000 now, and they told us it would probably be a little more. This year, we raised our deductible to try to lower our insurance, and, the estimate we got was gonna lower it about $5,000, which we thought, whew, that's just what we need. Well, when they done the deal and sent us our deal, it didn't lower it but $3. So, we didn't gain what we thought we were gonna gain. Just fuel costs are going up, and
What's that 2,500 on Murray Tower?
what we have got into on that, we put that tower up, and we put it at 60 foot, and we've been having issues out there. We can't, that tower will repeat back to this tower, and anybody listening to this tower can hear the conversation, but if you got two trucks on the Murray Tower, they couldn't communicate with each other. Well, we got Motorola down here, Dwayne down here, and what he said is our main tower is 60 foot and our link tower is 40 foot, and it's interfering. It's killing it, so we need to put 20 foot on the tower. And that's why we put a 60-foot tower up, so we could do it ourselves. To add a 20-foot section to it, we're gonna have to get big crane. And then we're gonna have to do coaxes. And I don't know exactly, it's gonna cost $2,500, but I wanted to put that in there to cover the cost. Because when we got hurt, stand this one up down here, I forget what he was, about $750 to come from Jacksboro over to that crane. And then we've got the section of tower and the coaxes are, they're expensive.
Yeah. That's something you just can't fly, you gotta use it continuous.
Right.
And just lower that other than 20 foot.
Then it'll make the heel to get back to this tower. Yeah, that's what we tried everything we could do out there. And when we lowered it, like I said, it wouldn't repeat back to this tower. So we defeated our purpose.
Surely y'all got some kind of question. I worked 2 weeks on these numbers.
You did a great
Good
job,
job.
too. I
It's
tell you
fine.
what.
Very nice.
I mean, you broke this stuff down.
What is
Very
the,
thorough.
I see here you got broke down on the difference in percentage of each department.
That was for repairs, tires, engines, any major breakdowns. Like I said, we've had everything from putting a truck in and charging them $2,000 to diagnose it with a $200 sensor to replacing the engines.
There's 3 different stations you don't spend a lot of money on.
There's what?
3 stations you don't spend a whole lot of money.
Right.
You got Gary Dean as a chief, he won't let you.
And on the very on the very back page is what each department's been putting in on their own, out of their own budget. So this is what we do on fundraising part.
Station, we'll do the line.
Well,
Are you
that's,
talking about here on this? Very line.
yeah.
Look at old Murray.
This is, like I say, this is what we do on our own to supplement the county budget.
Let me need to step up there.
You only know.
Yeah, make sure you point fingers.
You only know.
They don't want the participation of the old firefighter.
It's not cause it's a shame, it was because they, they had a turnover in administration a couple of years ago and didn't have all the records.
But it's better now.
We hope. No, I know it's a hundred percent
I
better.
guarantee you.
Yes, I can speak. And we've all started in the same boat. I mean, that's, we've tried our best to turn this thing around. And, we just got to have a little more money to make it work. But as far as I know, we don't have anybody out there. Newcastle took theirs over, and Teresa didn't have she had an overdraft.
I knew Teresa was helping with that, eliminating people that weren't showing up, basically, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, which helped with insurance some too.
Yeah.
How many trucks? How many people?
31 trucks and 105 people.
That's who
what
was
we're-
turned in last October.
Yeah.
We can't do nothing without you guys.
Also,
Still did.
We love y'all, and y'all do a lot for
am
us.
I correct in this? If you wanted full coverage on your truck, they pay the difference on that. If each one of your departments.
We haven't got to that. We discussed that, and it really wasn't gonna save us that much. We don't have that many trucks on full coverage. What we've got on there is grant trucks,
Yes.
which they were requiring.
Yes.
So we figured that was a responsibility to the county. If we had to, we could go back to the departments that say, you know, but we thought by getting newer trucks, we would cut our expenses. And like I said, it kind of shot us in the foot. I mean, you commissioners know exactly what we're talking about, buying new trucks, you know. You take an old 86 model truck, go and put a motor in for $4,000, or you can take a 2019 and have some little crappy thing wrong with it and run it down there to the dealership. Well, they put it in the computer for $1,000. You know, it did cost so much money, and we've done everything we can to cut. And there's nothing in there, we can go back and say, well, this is what goes in the back. It's just a nickel here and a nickel there, $1,000 here, $1,000 there. When your insurance uses 60% of your budget, you don't leave a lot to work with.
Was there any way we can help them with that tower for 4,500? You have a problem with that, Judge? We give them 2,500 for contingency for that tower. They can fix it. And Murray?
What's the budget in here, 70,000?
Yep.
It's a city.
We're,
For your tower.
no, he's asking what we're budget
$15,000 difference. We want to ask.
with need money to make our budget work. What we've been doing the last several years is running out of money in October or November, and we've been holding them bills over, and then as soon as we get money, we pay them out of next year's budget, and that's what we're trying to overcome in the whole year. I didn't know different for 3 years after I got to be president, that our budget runs from January to December. I thought it ran from October to September 30, because that Joe had always got money in October because he's out of money. I just assumed that's where years ago. And then we got to digging in bylaws to update bylaws and found out our year runs from January. Well, we still got that 3-month discrepancy in our budget, in our trying to make up. So, it's been an ongoing problem since they were drawing $40,000, paying $15,000 per year.
Like bylaws might run back down to the fiscal year, October through September, you might gain some money.
Yeah.
You just quit, you do 3 months. You don't want to do that, huh?
Money's money.
Teresa's like
That fixes it for that. You're right, but, like I said, this has been a problem. I don't know how long.
You don't have any trouble finding phone?
Not yet. It's just a matter of it's expensive. Class B, I'm forgetting now what it is, it's like, $200 bucket.
They make
Oh,
it
that's a
A,
shortage.
they make it A and B too. Yeah.
No, well, we haven't got into that, we've just been buying separate phones, but that B, when they outlawed, what was it? Royal Florida or whatever it is, it went up. I mean, it's like every time they outlaw Freon, and come up with new Freon, it's higher than the last.
All they gotta have is an excuse.
Yeah. So, that's another thing, increased with our expenses. Like I said, there's no one thing we go back and point, well, this is our problem, we need to fix this. I mean, we've weighed our options with insurance, and for what we've got, we know this company will stand behind us if we ever have a problem.
No reimbursements from insurance, grants or anything.
We putting that back in, I mean, yeah, we're getting part, the only thing there is on that is working comp.
Every year prior to that, they go put all that back into the county. Which it does.
Pretty well, not every year. There's one year that was voted not to.
Yeah.
When we had money.
7,000 for radios, batteries, and repairs.
That was,
This comes here.
that, where you at?
We had five battery packs in the tower in our county. That's what we had to do one year.
Those are not cheap. You gotta have a backup or it don't work.
And since our deductible now is 5,000, since we raised our deductibles to 5,000, you know, and the tower's 10 to replace the tower, so we, and a battery pack was 5, so that's why.
Getting unless if you change your deductible, it's just total $3,000 less.
Yeah. But we raised our deductibles to 5,000 on our buildings, and that included our tower, and the tower's 10, and so it's kind of lopsided itself. And our tower and our buildings are all on one policy, which we've asked to be separated, but they don't separate the towers and the buildings. And the battery pack was 5 that we had to buy that year.
Any other questions for Teresa?
Texas money, isn't it?
Increase it off her.
But, like I said, she's the one that does the budget, so.
Very
She
good.
just wanted me to get up here and be the spokesperson. Which I'm not gonna do. So anyway, that's her.
Y'all having trouble getting tires for those trucks yet?
We're buying, anytime we find some good used tires, we buy them. We're buying what we can through the surplus down there. They haven't had any lately, but, the big tires, we're giving $250 a tire for them. They're practically brand new ones.
Cheap.
What's that y'all want?
$395, $85.20.
Now, on these military trucks, you'll see that truck 13 that Newcastle has, that through Stevens, there are grants that you can apply every year, as long as they have them at Lufkin. They will give you those tires for free. They'll bring them to you, Forest Service will. You get the number of tires plus your spare, and Forest Service will bring them to you, as long as you have that truck.
If they have.
If they have the tires.
They
You
don't
just apply
always
for
have
the
it.
grant every January.
It depends on how many cars they had to buy.
Yes, and then every, you know, you may get it.
Cars, Forest Service buys every year,
Yes.
or whatever, and then.
Not only you can pick it up, bring it to us if it's gotta go through us.
No, no, it doesn't go through y'all, it goes through, each station applies for it.
Okay.
And then, in about, you never know when it's gonna happen, all of a sudden you get a phone call and says, we're fixing to pull up in your driveway, unlock your station door, and we're gonna unload 5 tires, and they may have hubs on them, and they may be hubs for not even your truck. And you'll have to bust the hubs off, and, for your truck, okay? And then they'll be on their way to Allianceville, and they may be on their way to Loving, because in January, at the board meeting,
Well, when you said you can make a grant, that's not interpreted that,
No, no.
to say we can make a
no,
grant.
in January, I'll always pass out the applications at the county board meeting for all the stations that have these trucks, or they've gone through Lufkin to apply for these American Generals or Stuart Stevens, where they've gone through Lufkin's to get those, military trucks to apply in January. You may not get tires that year. It may be 2 years where you get a set of tires. But you just keep applying because you never know when the set's gonna come through to you. And you'll have to, like I said, you may not get a set of hub, already brand new tires. You may not have a hub on them, or you may have a hub that don't even fit your truck. And you have to bust the hub off.
And this is
But
true.
what she's talking
Forest
about,
Service
this
is local.
DOD truck,
Mhm.
it has to be a DOD truck,
Yes.
Department of Defense. It's a separate program than the Forest Service, but it runs through the Forest Service, it's a federal level grant. And, I guess
I think I've got.
now, every station has one. We just got ours in at Murray, and Station 5's got theirs behind the station now to rig it out, so we can all apply for that tire grant now.
Okay, so what you've got here to go with about $17,000 more than what is appropriated or
Yeah.
proposed,
Right.
our budgetary.
What's the balance on y'all's checking account today?
11,000, yeah. 11,782.70.
And we still have a $7,600 insurance payment to make.
That's due October 1st.
I'm not gonna leave you with much money in the account.
4223.70 to operate for 5 months.
She got it down to the
Fuel.
Have you made any claims on that insurance this year?
That was what?
Made claims on that insurance?
No,
We had.
no, we hadn't made any claims on that insurance since we lost the tower.
We had, disability, right?
Yeah, we had a workers' comp claim,
Yep.
3 years ago.
Total insurance for buildings, tires, personnel liability, workers' comp. No claims on trucks.
I've been doing the book since 14, and we've never filed a claim on the truck. Not that I can remember. We've lost,
Also insured personnel.
Yep.
Nobody's got
Our
no
civil-
cut off or anything like that.
Well, we did have 2 years ago. Workers' comp claim.
we've lost 2 towers, lightning struck 2 towers. Not had a building claim, nothing happened to any of our buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't be sure.
Both the trains.
We just didn't have good help on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
That'll be food consideration.
Okay. All questions?
We're,
We thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
we're hoping JD to adopt the budget on the 23rd.
Okay.
See you.
Coming back today. You okay?
I'm done.
I told him to come back and look at the call, and know your figure out.
We're coming back.
Yes, ma'am.
At
1:30.
Judge, can I leave all this stuff here?
Who seconded it? Who made the motion?
You can,
Yeah.
Mr. Murray.
I
Said I could. Come back to you.